Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our course preview for this week's Arnold Palmer Invitational. Gonna go through Bay Hill Club and Lodge, give you all the goods of what to expect this week, help you get your research process started with some of those course details, but go hole by hole, show you all the shots required around this event, as well as my custom modeling, key stats, and comp courses for this week to go ahead and get you started. And let's not waste any time at all and go ahead and hop on in with first off some of those course details and some of the stats we see around this event. API is one of the hardest golf courses that you're going to see the entire year. It's a par 72 and it plays over par, which is kind of crazy considering most of those courses are par 70s, where maybe they take a par 5 and turn it into a par 4. Nope, it plays the same as you get for your resort guests here, your members there at Bay Hill Club and Lodge, and it's going to play over par for a PGA Tour event. So one of the more unique tracks from that aspect, and a lot of it comes down to the rough. You've got 3-inch rough here listed on the sheet, but by the time we get out there to Thursday, Friday, it's going to be a beefy 4 inches long, and it's only going to grow by the time we get to Saturday and Sunday. So hitting fairways and hitting greens around here really is the name of the game, because not only do you have that deep rough, pretty narrow fairway corridors as well, but all the greens are surrounded by really deep bunkers, and then that 4-inch even to 5-inch rough by the end of the week. The greens are large. They are about 7,500 square foot, so a tad larger than your PGA Tour average, but they run extremely fast, can be firm when the weather conditions cooperate, and they tend to have a lot of 3-putts on them as well. And it's kind of emblematic of what you have at Arnold Palmer Designs. That combined with a lot of water off the tee, and it's maybe not as prevalent as some of the other courses that he's designed, in play on 9 of the 18 holes, but it is strategically placed. It's placed at spots where players just can't go out there and miss, and you can see a lot of double or even triple bogeys at this golf course because of that water aspect on half of the holes out there. In terms of changes here in 2025, the only change listed over here on the greenskeeper sheet is going to be the beach bunker at hole 17. So hole 17 is that par 3. It had that massive bunker over towards the lake. Now it's a grass bank, which has me think if they shave it off and make it fairway area, they're going to see a lot more water balls there at that hole. So I think it actually will make it play harder here in 2025, which I know sounds crazy as you'd be playing off of grass as opposed to sand, but that grass is also going to let the ball trickle into the penalty area. In terms of your averages from last year, I've got those up here on the screen. In fact, we got the last 3 years logged in here. The fairway average a little bit below your PGA Tour average. Your green average, though, almost 10% lower than your PGA Tour average. Now, last year it was closer to 59%. So with the softer, less windy conditions, you saw players get after it a little bit more. But this is one of the hardest courses to go out there and hit greens. And in fact, you hit it only about 10 per round around this golf course. Your scrambling rate lower than your PGA Tour average. With the tricky greens, you have more 3-putts around this golf course as well. And there's more bogeys than birdies made out here most years. In 2024, they were about even when it came to the birdie or better rate and the bogey or worse rate. But historically, you're going to see this play as one of the harder tracks that you have out here. If we take a look at some of the advanced course analytics, you can hit driver on almost every single hole. The 15 up there is not correct. There's only 14 driver holes at this golf course, but I totally get what they're saying. It is a course where having length and accuracy off the tee is super important. Not one where you can spray it off the tee, though. Just because maybe you're an Aldrich pot guider, one of those longest players in the field off the tee, does not mean that this is going to be a great course fit for you. You've seen a lot of your elite accuracy and distance guys, like the Scotty Scheffler who won last year, Rory McIlroy, dominate at this sort of golf course. Your approach profile skews a little bit longer than what we're used to seeing. It is relatively balanced, but when you compare this approach distribution to what we usually see, a little bit more coming from 175 to 225. Your around the green distribution looks very traditional, I'd say, out there to most sort of events, and your putting rates are a little bit lower around this golf course just because of how tricky the green complexes can be. Now let's go hole by hole and show you the shots required here. So hole number 1, a little dogleg from right to left. This tee shot a lot harder than you'd think. You have to shape it around the corner if you hit a driver. A lot of people just hit like a 3-wood out here to the corner. And this, a shot into the green, has a very narrow green complex. So it really requires perfect distance control. Hole 2 is one of the hardest holes out here. It is a par 3, a long iron shot that maybe for one of the 3 rounds, 4 rounds, they'll go out there and move it up. But it's another very narrow green complex. And though it is large square footage wise, the amount of precision you need to actually hit the green here is why you only have about 10, maybe 11 greens of regulation per round. Next up, you have hole 3, water the whole way down the left. Once again, maybe a hole that you hit less than driver on, because if you choose to take driver, you do have to take on that water down the left, and it also creates a very awkward angle. The approach shot, though, if you can hit the short stuff, is one of the easier ones that you have around here. Hole 4 is your first par 5. It has some length to it, but for most players in the field, field should be reachable in 2 as long as it's not playing into the wind, which can happen sometimes. A lot of times the wind will be coming in directly into your face on hole 4. Hole 5 is 387. This is a layup off the tee unless you're an absolute bomber. You have nothing to lose, maybe on a Saturday, Sunday. You might try and hit it up near where my cursor is here, but mostly just a positional pitch and putt par 4. Next up, you have hole 6. This is your next par 5. This is the one where Bryson, by the way, drove it over the water. So you're not going to do that. You're not going to be that crazy with your line. Most players over here are going to hit a driver to the corner. If you're a longer player, you can be a little bit more aggressive over towards where my cursor is. But your second shot, especially if you're laying up where most people are going to, is not a gimme to go on and get that in 2. It's like about 260 yards directly in line. That water short is going to scare a lot of players. And if you bail out to the right side, great build out, by the way, for the fans up where my cursor is right there, and extremely hard up and down though. And I can tell you from experience that not a lot of people are able to pull it off. Hole 7 is 200 yards. There's a lot of slope on this green that you can't really appreciate from the overhead view, but it's a pretty traditional par 3 for what you get around Bay Hill. Hole 8 is 462. This is a slate dogleg from left to right. One of the hardest holes out here. You have the water in front of the green, which comes into play, especially if you miss your tee shot. Out of that 4-inch rough, like people will be laying up actually in front of that water, not even taking this on, but another extremely narrow green. Hole 9 is one of the hardest holes in all of professional golf. This tee shot tends to be extremely exposed to the wind. You've got this driving range to the left. You have some hedges, little bushes to the left side. But a lot of times if it's going from left to right or even from right to left, it's pretty much impossible to hit this fairway here, and then it's like a 230, 240 yard shot into the green with protected bunkers and rough. It's absolutely brutal. Probably should be a par 5, but even for your members here, it's a par 4. Hole 10, so starting on the back, I believe they may do split tees. They try to avoid it when they can, though. This hole, though, dogleg from left to right, is usually a layup for players. Last year, Rory did take it over the corner and drive the green, though. So I guess if the wind direction's favorable, if it is going in that predominant direction, could be a little bit helpful there. 11 is 439. It is a dogleg from right to left. You do have the water to the left, which could force a few players to lay up, but a lot will take driver, maybe even try and drive it past these bunkers to the right to the corner. By the way, last year, Jordan Spieth had about a 40-footer for birdie that he hit, walked away like he absolutely hated it, and then drained it. That was one of my better memories here around the API. Hole 12 is 570. This is another reachable par 5 for your longer players. The longer you are, the more that you can challenge this bunker to the right side. So if you can get it over that and into the fairway, it is definitely goable in 2. But your shorter players, especially if you miss the fairway there, are going to have to lay up. 13 is 377. This is another layup par 4. So this isn't really a bomber's course, right? You can kind of tell that at this point. Like the par 5s, it's very nice to have that aspect, but you have enough layup par 4, especially some of the dog legs with the water where you don't have to be a bomber to go out there and have success here. So another one where you have to hit a wedge in, and if you do, you can go out there and set up a birdie look, which are pretty rare around this golf course. 14 is 213 yards. Great build-outs around this par 3 as well, but a long iron shot, and depending on the wind direction, could be one of the harder holes out there. 15 is 473. This is one where it usually comes down to the tournament. You know, a lot of people look at 16, 17, 18 for winning holes and that sort of thing. This is where you can lose the event because you've got OB the whole way down the left here. You've got these trees which force a layup to the left side. Jordan Spieth in contention a few years ago, just like it was great to see him make that putt at 11. He fell victim out there to that sort of tee shot. So it's one where if you have somebody out there in contention, you might want to pucker up a little bit because that's the hole where it could go sideways quickly. 16 is 513. This is a par 5, so by far the easiest hole that you have out here, and it should be scoreable and reachable for every single player in the field unless you completely miss off the tee. 17 is where you have the change this year, and you can't see that change quite yet, but this bunker that was called the beachside bunker has been completely removed. So this is now grass over here to the side, and because this is water over here, I think you might see a few more water balls this year, and perhaps that's why they made that change. People that were missing in there the last few years had a very high up and down rate. It's into the slope, you're playing up into these pin locations with everything working towards you. It just wasn't that difficult, so maybe that's why they did that. 18 is 464, water the whole way down the right side. If you miss the fairway here, good luck, because you pretty much have to lay up if you miss over here to the right side. If you choose to go for the green, well, you're bringing on like a 50-50 risk of bringing it into this water. So, and if you miss long, everything slopes from the back of the screen down towards the water. So you're not out of, jail yet, because you could easily chip it into the water there as well. So a very difficult finishing hole, and another one of these greens that is extremely narrow, requires the utmost precision to go out there and hit it, and is what you see at a lot of these Arnold Palmer designs. Now we've gone through the holes, let's go through our modeling and our key stats for this week. So I've got the bet the number model up right here, and we'll talk about what they're including out there in their modeling. So first off, we got shots gained approach, which you want a good mix of off the tee accuracy and distance because of some of the layups off the tee. And Aldrich Potgieter, because of his elite distance, is number one in that category. But guys like a Pendrith McElroy that have also been hitting some fairways lately. Scotty Scheffler, of course, elite out there in both categories, but a Robert McIntyre, also relatively accurate off the tee. Victor Hovland out there as well, are players that you've seen play well at this golf course in the past. I mean, Scotty out there, past champion. Victor Hovland, decent track record around this course and similar style golf courses as well, is something that you definitely want to be including in your modeling. Next up, we got regular shots gained approach, which is always going to be a staple out there in my analysis, and over here with the bet the number crew. Top of that list is going to get a huge nod out there in my model. So players like Scotty Scheffler, once again checking that box. Not a surprise out there winning last year and winning out there in 2022 as well. But JT, Tommy Fleetwood, guys like Glover, Spawn, Schauffele, all up there towards the top. But keep in mind with Xander that he hasn't played pretty much at all over here in 2025. So these stats aren't from any time recent, but guys like Hideki, Victor Hovland looks to be really striping the ball well over his last few events, are all guys that you might want to give a little bit of extra attention to. This 175 to 225 range is really the approach bucket that you want to hone in on. Just like we said over there on our course tab earlier, that's where you're getting some extra emphasis this week. So guys like McGreevy, McNeely up there towards the top end of our modeling. Brian Campbell with his last really good performance, another one after the win that he had over there at the Mexico Open. You got guys like Grazerman, Celinda, Berger up there towards the top of that list. All guys that are going to get a slight bump as well. Around the green matters. This is a course where avoiding bogeys is going to help you separate. So guys that have been gaining around the green, also worthy of a little bit extra consideration, especially if we get some windy conditions at all this week. Putting from 4 to 10 feet is what bet the number is really honing in on here. They're trying to get guys that can score this week, because you're going to have a lot of birdie putts in that range when you hit the wedges into the short par fours, but also for par savers. Even if you're one of the better around the green players on tour, out of that 4-inch rough around the green, some of those really deep bunkers that are tough, a 6-footer out there for par is going to be a really good around the green shot. And then finally, they're looking at some bogey avoidance as well. Anytime you get to a really difficult golf course like that, always something that you want to look at. And Michael Kim towards the top end of that list, but guys like Daniel Berger really striping the ball well over his last 24 rounds. Guys like Colin Morikawa, Den McCarthy, Scotty Scheffler showing up once again. All guys that are worthy of some extra consideration. And when you put this all together, you see that Xander's number one. Once again, a massive asterisk on that, as he has not played any time recently. So I would almost completely throw him out there. But McGreevy, number two, some of that might be the weaker events that he's going out there and playing in. But the first legit player that shows up is probably a Michael Kim there. Scotty Scheffler down there at number 4. Kind of surprising that he wouldn't be a little bit higher. Maybe that 175 to 225 range is just taking a little bit too much away from him there. But guys like JJ Spawn, Daniel Berger in the BTN model, all modeling out extremely well, as well as guys like Matt McNeely, Lucas Glover, Hideki, and Ben Griffin that round out that top 10. I've also got a few comp courses that you can use to try and find some leaderboard crossovers. So number one, going to be the Memorial Tournament over there at Muirfield Village. Another course where it's got that deep, rough, really difficult scoring, and you don't have to be a bomber to get the job done. I mean, just take a look at 2024's leaderboard for some evidence of that. You got guys like Adam Hadwin that finished in third, Christian Bezainhout, but you're not going to be playing at like an 8,000-yard golf course. So a track where if you're accurate or you're really long off the tee, it can be a huge benefit, and you've got those really difficult conditions elsewhere where bogey avoidance and around the green comes into play. Look at the year before that. That's when Victor Hovland won. Right, already mentioned that he's got a really good skill set for this course. But Denny McCarthy, right, not the longest player off the tee, also has competed around a Muirfield Village. So guys like a Siwoo Kim, Andrew Putnam, not known as bombers off the tee, are also the kind of guys that if they have a really good iron week around here, especially from 175 to 225, could show up on that leaderboard as well. And then the other comp course that I've got is a little bit different in terms of the agronomy. I guess the same same thing with Muirfield Village. You've got the Bermuda grass greens this week, by the way. Didn't mention that before, but yeah, we do have Bermuda for this golf tournament. At Muirfield Village, it's bent grass, I believe, and then over here at Torrey Pines, I believe you have the Poa Nua greens. So different agronomy at all three different tracks, but another course with super deep rough, tricky greens, and a scoring average that's normally well over par. Now, the Farmers is a little bit more power heavy than what you have over there at Muirfield Village or even over there at the API, but it does give us a really good look at some of the guys that excel when you have these difficult conditions. So, this year you had Harris English win, Sam Stevens up there towards the top, but if you go to the year before that, that's when Pavon won, had Nicolai Højgaard there in second place. A little bit more power that you're seeing on these leaderboards, but Nate Lashley, right, he's not known as one of the longest players in the field off the tee. Go back to the year before that, like Hayden Springer, I guess he's got some length to him, but definitely an Andrew Novak. He's not one of the longest players that we have in this field. Same thing with the Joel Damon, Alanto Griffin, not bombers in that category. That can still show up around a Torrey Pines if they've got that grinder's mindset and if they can go out there and have a really good long iron week. So if you're looking for comps, I'm going to leave it to those two. I don't think there's a lot of tracks that really compare to what we get at the API. It's unique, and you've got to find tracks that are this difficult to do so. So focusing on those sort of golf courses and events could be useful out there for this week. Alrighty guys, that is all I've got for the course breakdown. Go ahead, smash that like button if you haven't already, and also subscribe so don't miss any of the content to come. That'll of course include our DFS and betting preview a little bit later on tonight, by going over all of our DFS core plays and values, as well as my outright betting card for the API, so make sure you stay tuned for that a little bit later on, as well as all the content throughout the week. That'll include our Wednesday live stream, 7 p.m. Eastern time, going through all your questions down there in the live chat. We'll go through a little weather report, some ownership over there in GPPs, any of your questions down there as well to make sure you're ready for all of your exposure. So don't miss any of that. Subscribe so you're notified when all of that goes live. And also for a chance to earn a free month on my Patreon page, which is where I'm posting all my extra analysis for everyone in the field, make sure to give me your winning score for this week. It'll be on a first come, first serve basis. So once a winning score is taken once, it cannot be guessed again. And if you end up getting that score correct, you'll win a free month access over there to my site. On there's where I've got all my modeling out there for every single player in the field. I've got my projections, my outright betting card, all my DFS exposure out there as well. All there for every single player that's playing, right? Not just the few guys that we could talk up here in these videos, but every single player that's teeing it up. We do a full deep dive on it, fully stat break it down, all that sort of stuff. So check it out if that's something that you guys are curious about. And of course, make sure to give me that winning score for the giveaway for a chance to earn that access. But that's all I've got, guys. I appreciate you guys stopping by, supporting the channel as you guys always do. Best of luck with everything that you guys are going with. I'll see you guys for that DFS and betting breakdown later today.